everybody, and welcome back to week number 10 of College Football Betting Breakdown Show. I am your host, as always, Sean PSU Fans 2 Newsham. Joining me after, best week of all time for himself, Alex Fearmyturtle Hardin. Alex was able to win about $70,000 in the big GPP on DraftKings for the daily fantasy side of things. And look, he caught up to me. He's only a half a game behind. He went 3-0 this weekend in our bets from the show. Alex, how are you doing today?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Felt pretty dialed in last week. Did well in daily fantasy, did well on the prop sites, and 3-0 here on the show. So finally get back to 500 within a half game of you. So we'll try to keep the momentum rolling.
Yeah, so quick recap for you guys last week. I was 1-2, unfortunately. So I'm now 14-12-1 on the season. I had BYU -3 against ECU. Unfortunately, ECU won. Kudos to them. They played a good game. I was happy to see them win, even though it lost me that bet. Kentucky +13 against Tennessee. That game was not close. That game was pathetic. Alex was definitely correct on that. Pittsburgh UNC over 63.5. It was 42-24 finish. So I got a close win there. Alex was 3-0, as we said. He liked Penn State. Unfortunately, I was very disappointed about this game. I'll let you talk about it in a second, but Penn State should have won that game. They were the much better team, I thought. Unlike the Michigan game where they were the way worse team, they were actually the better team this game. It was unlucky to lose. They had some untimely turnovers that cost them, so that was unfortunate. You were on the Tennessee side, and you definitely were way more correct in that situation than I was. And then UCLA -15.5 was another easy win for you. So what do you think of the Penn State game, Alex? Do you feel as bad for me as I do with Penn State losing that one?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, Penn State might actually win this. And I wasn't even sweating like the 14.5. And then like it just all went sideways late. And like I was like, oh, I'm not even going to cover now. And then Penn State finally scored a garbage touchdown. But like that game was way closer than the score indicates.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State, I thought was clearly the better team. I was very sad to see us lose that game. We win that game. I mean, we legit have a shot at the playoff because we would be in a spot where they have a shot to win out, and Michigan still has to play Ohio State. And if Michigan were to lose to Ohio State, would cause a three-way tie where Penn State would be right there. And Penn State, I thought, looked good. Like Penn State was the better team in that game. I saw there was a tweet out there about like luckiest wins, and Ohio State was like one of the top 5 luckiest wins of the weekend. So unfortunate end to the Penn State season. The way that I describe end of seasons is when you cannot make the playoff anymore. When you are out of contention for the playoff, your season is over. Obviously, going 10-2 would be a very good season, and I hope Penn State can pull that off. But you lose some sort of interest when you can't really make the playoffs, at least for me as a fan. I know Alex has a little bit more different because his season's over when Maryland's not bowl eligible. So it's a bit different of a sweat for the two of us in this situation.
Hey, Maryland took care of that pretty easily this year. So
yeah, that's not something that you get to say all the time, though.
No, definitely not.
All right. Heading into week 10 here, we're going to have about 10 games for you guys this week. Not the most appealing week, honestly. There's not a lot of good games out there that we're looking forward to, but we're going to dig into it. First game of the weekend, we have Texas Tech traveling to face TCU. As you guys see, it's around a touchdown, a little over a touchdown. It's moved around 10, actually, on DraftKings. So open 7.5. Texas Tech was shaky last week. TCU actually looked quite good for the most part last week. They were really pretty dominant in their game. Didn't actually injure a starting quarterback for a change, but they did injure the best offensive player on the other team again, pretty much, which was unfortunate for both of us. But what is your thoughts here on this game? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think TCU is running pretty hot. They're 8-0, but like they're a pretty solid team. They're up to 4th in SP plus offense. Their defense is just pretty average, though. However, they're back at home versus the Texas Tech team that's not. They have a good offensive scheme, but they're not there yet. And defensively, like I just don't see how they stop TCU at all. And my take is that this is a spot where TCU is hanging 40 against Texas Tech, and I don't see Texas Tech keeping up. So I like TCU side of this game. They have a well-balanced attack. They have plenty of weapons outside with Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis, big playmakers. And then Kendre Miller's looked great. And then they have a stable of backups that are pretty serviceable as well. So I just think there's a lot of ways TCU can score here, and it's a spot where I don't think Texas Tech will be able to slow them down at all.
Yeah, it's actually really looking at Texas Tech. It's kind of funny because Dugan wasn't the starter at the start of the season. There was a lot of questions around it, whereas he's been arguably the best quarterback in the nation. Like the only people you can really talk about with him are Bo Nix and Stroud. Like those are like the only people that you can realistically talk with him. Obviously, a couple others as well, but TCU has been lucky, but also they're good. I think you nailed that pretty accurately. Like they have been very lucky in the situations they've been in, but they've also been pretty good for the most part. They have just a lot of depth. They have so many ways they can beat you, whether it's Kendre Miller on the ground, whether it's Dugan on the ground, whether it's Quentin Johnston in the air. They have Darius Davis, who just is absolutely explosive. We saw Tate Barber have a bomb this week. So there's just a lot of players on this team that can make things happen. For me, like you said, Texas Tech has a good fundamental setup ready. They're just not there yet. All of their losses have been relatively close, and they arguably could have won those games. But I just don't think everything is put together yet for them. So I also like TCU in this game. I do think Texas Tech could score. Like you said, I don't see how Texas Tech can keep up with TCU in this game. So I also like TCU there as well. All right, next game, Baylor traveling to Oklahoma to face the Sooners. We saw Richard Reese again have a big game this weekend. The issue for me for Baylor is they are incredibly one-dimensional. It is like Richard Reese, and then that's it. And like, yeah, Shapen has like Monterey Baldwin that they can throw a deep ball to, but it's just so dull of an offense to me. It's not dull. I actually think it's a pretty effective offense. I'm not sure that they are that good. And Oklahoma, if they are a better team. I just don't know what Oklahoma we're going to get here. So for me, this game is a stay away. What do you think?
I think that Oklahoma is a bit underrated at this point in the season. Like they had a tough stretch where Gabriel got hurt and they looked bad for a couple games. So I think they're kind of undervalued in the market. Advanced metric systems like SP Plus, which is more forward looking than like results oriented, has them 12th in the country still. They have as a top 10 offense. The issue with Oklahoma is their defense is not very good. Specifically, they're not very good against the run. So while I want to take Oklahoma here, I'm worried that they're just poor at the thing that Baylor wants to do most on offense. So like Oklahoma's allowing 4.6 yards per carry, 114th nationally in rush yards per game, and they're allowing 3.3 line yards per attempt, which kind of indicates they have some defensive line issues. And Baylor's just going to run. So it's one of those situations where I think if they can slow down the Baylor rush attack at all, they should be able to cover here. But I'm not very confident here. So it's more just a lean to Oklahoma minus 3.5, but ultimately probably a stay away for me.
Agreed. All right, next game, we have the big game of the weekend, and this is the heavy hitter, and that is Tennessee against Georgia. As you guys see here, the line has moved from about 12.5 point open to about a 8.5, 9 point game here. I like Georgia. I think Tennessee's defense cannot keep up with Georgia. I think Georgia's defense is obviously the best Tennessee has seen. To me, this is like a sexy bet where people are very enticed by Tennessee because Tennessee's been explosive. They're fun to watch. We both know Georgia is not fun to watch. Georgia is not a game you watch like it's in terms of when I sit there and look at the schedule on Saturday. Georgia generally will not crack the top 40 games that I want to put on my TV on Saturday. I just don't care about them. I don't care about their games at all. They're boring. They're not fun. This one I will probably watch. Obviously, it's a bit more interesting. Typically, Georgia, I watch the Alabama game. That's it all year. And then I watch them in the playoff. And if they are good enough to win, they win, and it's boring. I think they're going to have a pretty easy time with Tennessee via the air. And I don't see Tennessee really having the ability to stop them too much. And Georgia's defense is the best thing Tennessee is going to see all year. So I think it's just a difficult spot for Tennessee to really showcase that they are a top one team in the nation. I don't think they're that good. I think Tennessee is very good, and I love watching Tennessee. They're fun to watch. But for me, that's what this game feels like, and I like Georgia here. What do you think?
Yeah, that all makes sense. I don't think those openers were available for pretty long, like 12.5 and 59.5. Like I would have taken Tennessee and the over in those, and you see like there was a move pretty fast, dramatic to the over and towards the Tennessee side. But I mean, At 8.5, it's tough. I want to like the Tennessee side just because I think they can score against anybody, but it's tough. And like you said, everyone's going to be piling in on Tennessee. I do have trouble taking Georgia covering 9 here against Tennessee. I just think like Tennessee defense is not that bad, especially against the run. They've actually been pretty good, and that's what Georgia likes to do. However, I think like Georgia has enough weapons that it really doesn't matter. They should be able to put together a better offensive game plan than someone like Kentucky did, or even Alabama without their full weaponry. So like, I want to bet Tennessee here, but I think it's probably like the square public play. I'm just kind of staying away ultimately, but I'll be rooting for Tennessee here because I don't want to see Georgia in the national championship again.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Tennessee is like their defense is good against the run, like you said. They get beat on the pass. Kentucky just stinks.
Yeah. Well,
despite apparently Will Levis being a top 10 quarterback or top 10 draft pick.
I mean, he's going to be like a top 3 draft pick, which is just mind
blowing.
Blows
my mind. I don't understand it at all. Blows my mind. Nothing against Will Levis. But man, I don't see it. But you know who's going to have a big game here? Brock Bowers.
But yeah, he's going to absolutely eat.
Brock Bowers just feels like this is going to be a smash game for him, and he's just going to obliterate.
Well, yeah, I mean, because like he's going to get volume, and like literally anytime he gets volume, he just goes nuclear.
Yeah,
like
most times he doesn't get volume, he goes nuclear. So it's just a spot where I just think it's super favorable for him. All right, next game, we move to West Virginia and Iowa State. This game smells. Like, this game literally stinks. I watched both of these teams on the weekend, and it was just rough. If Donaldson's out, it just is hard for West Virginia to do much. He's definitely their best offensive player. And if he's out, the running back options they have are just not very good. Iowa State side, like, I don't know. I watched that game against Oklahoma. It was just awful. They just have nothing. They're just really dull, really boring. So I'm just going to stay away from this because I just am not interested in watching this game at all, and neither side really stands out. Do you see anything differently here?
No, I don't really even know I included this game on the list, but because it's just kind of pathetic. But I kind of lean the under here. Like, this is a spot where I don't see how West Virginia scores 3 touchdowns, and like I don't ever see Iowa State like comfortably scoring more than 3 touchdowns. So at that point, I think it's just a game where like Iowa State gets up a bit and just grinds out the game completely, and I don't trust JT Daniels to do much. And without their best offensive player, I think a lot of their drives stall out. So definitely lean towards the under here. And just to circle back to the last game, the more I think about it, I still think I'm going to play Tennessee side in 8.5. Just I think their offense is too good, and it's just kind of a rule of thumb at this point with them. I'll take more than a touchdown versus any team with them, but we can keep the show moving.
That's fair. Can't hate on that. All right, next game we have Arizona and Utah. This one's an interesting one. I know that Arizona is like the worst defense of all Power 5 teams in the country. Like, they are terrible defensively, but I really, here's the thing, right? I actually really like what they're doing. They are 3-5, which is obviously terrible, but they look like an actual team. They can move the ball on offense, which to me, like, hey, if you're going to be terrible, make it fun. Be fun and terrible instead of just dull and terrible. And Arizona's offense has been really good. Utah, last week, we saw whatever that was that Utah did, where we got rumors that Micah Bernard wasn't going to play. Tavion Thomas got left at home. Nothing on Cameron Rising. Then he didn't play snap and was out. Dalton Kincaid got hurt during the game. He left in a sling. I don't see how Utah struggles here because I just don't see how they struggle. But I can't bet it knowing that Kincaid is probably going to be out. Cameron Rising, I have no idea if he's going to play. Tavion Thomas or Micah Bernard, no clue what their situations are going to be like. So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, all right, well, the top 4 offensive weapons for this team are likely out. Like, what am I supposed to do? So, like, I would probably lean Utah, but I'm not, like, fist pumping that. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, same. And seeing that this game crossed 17 at most books, it's a stay away. I had a mild interest at 16.5, but I think that 17 number might actually come into play here. It seems about right. It's no matter who's on the field for Utah, I feel pretty comfortable with them scoring points. It's just a matter of how tough the Utah defense is, and it's usually a pretty tough road spot for a team like Arizona to have a good game at Utah. So definitely not taking the Wildcats, but I agree on your points with them. They've showed some promise offensively, and I'd lean Utah, but it's just too many points.
Yeah, it's like Arizona, their program is moving in the correct way, which is more than you can say about some other teams that end up in those type of situations. All right, next game we have Alabama traveling to LSU. Alabama is -13. I like Alabama. I think they're way better than a 2-touchdown favorite against LSU. However, it's a bit trickier because Jaden Daniels has looked way better over the last few games than he did previously in the season. So I probably will not bet it, but I probably would lean Alabama until you get over the 2-touchdown mark, which we are not at yet. So what's your thoughts here?
I like LSU here. 13.5 seems like a gift here. Like, obviously Bama can robe down anyone. I feel pretty good about kind of pegging Bama, especially coming off calling them beating Mississippi State badly, which they did. I think this is a much tougher game, and Jaden Daniels is much tougher to deal with as compared to someone like Will Rogers, who's just going to kind of sit in the pocket. Daniels is going to run a lot here, I think, and it's going to cause some issues. I think LSU can actually score a bit here, and LSU has gotten better over the course of the season, both offensively and defensively. I think that's one thing you get with the Brian Kelly team is you get a fairly high floor typically. And we're seeing them improve, and they might actually reach their ceiling by the end of the year. They're looking pretty tough. So I like the points here, which might be a bit crazy, but
no, I mean I can see it. They've definitely looked way better as the year has gone on. So I can definitely understand that. All right, next game we go to Texas and Kansas State. We see this one. Kansas State is a very slight favorite. Kansas State was dominant last weekend. They were fantastic on Saturday. They just absolutely put Oklahoma State away like immediately, and they just never stopped. And it was just a absolute slaughter without Adrian Martinez, which I mean, that's not surprising. Amar's not the best option, I would say, as a quarterback. So like going to Will Howard isn't like the end of the world. Howard started quite a few games for Kansas State at this point, so he's at least a serviceable backup. So I'll let you go first here. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so you threw me off a bit when you said Kansas State was favored.
Oh, sorry, Texas slight favorite. It's
disrespect.
My bad.
Disrespect the Longhorns.
My bad.
This is a tough spot. I really don't know which Texas offense shows up and which Kansas State team shows up, because usually they're not like the team that goes out and just plows teams by like 30 or 40. Interesting matchup. I just don't have a good feel on either of these teams really at this point in the season, so it's a stay away. But I want to see if Ewers bounces back a bit, because Texas was looking pretty good up until last week. So stay away from me.
Yeah, I mean, Ewers can't look worse. Let's be honest, like can't look worse. I actually like the under here. I think that under 56.5 is where I would put my bet on in this game. I think it's going to be a defensive game per se. Like I think both defenses are good enough to sort of slow down the opposition. And if they can keep big plays off the field from Worthy, Bijan, Deuce Vaughn, it's going to be a bit more difficult to put points on the board. So like I think both of these defenses are at least strong enough that they can sort of limit big plays, and I think they can limit scoring a bit. So I like the under here more so than either side in this game. All right, next game we got Clemson traveling to Notre Dame to face the Fighting Irish. I probably would lean Clemson. As you see, it opened at like 5.5. It's down to like 3.5. This game just sort of stinks to me. I mean, I know you're gonna like Notre Dame here, is my guess. Oh no, you don't like Notre Dame. Never mind. I don't know. Like I probably would like lean Clemson, but this game just has like giant stinker written all over it. So what's your thoughts here?
So I'm obviously not a fan of either team, especially Clemson, but I think they're pretty clearly a tier above Notre Dame at this point, which the numbers don't seem to really believe that. And this game, because Clemson's going to be able to shut down Notre Dame's running game, I think. And Notre Dame wants to run. Like they don't trust Drew Pine. Like last week where they comfortably won, they ran the ball 56 times, passed it 19. Like they're not going to be able to do that this week. Pine is going to have to throw the ball. That you beat Clemson through the air. I just don't think he's able to do that. I do think Mayer has a big bounce back game here because I think they're going to be playing from behind a bit and going to have to throw. But I like Clemson. Nothing from Notre Dame suggests that they're overly scary defensively. Like they're pretty solid, but I think Clemson can cover here. So I lean the Tigers, which if I like the Tigers, that's got to show you something.
True. All right, next game, we have Wake Forest traveling to NC State, fresh off of Wake Forest having 8 turnovers. It was a rough game for Sam Hartman and Wake against, surprisingly, Louisville this weekend. They were absolutely dreadful. I'll let you go first in this one. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is I really don't want to watch this game. Like every single NC State game this year has been terrible. Like their offense is pathetic and they have a good defense. I think Wake Forest might bounce back a bit here. Like I just don't have any faith in NC State scoring enough against pretty much anybody. And I think Hartman's going to come out pretty strong. And you see the number moving already, 1.5 to 4.5, which to me is a little bit uncomfortable. So like this will be kind of a general stay away. But I think Wake Forest will kind of have the quote unquote good week of practice after turning the ball over 8 times and come out looking a bit sharper. It's a pretty big game for them in terms of like the season. So
yeah, I mean, for me, I agree. Stay away. It's if you write up an equation of like what I don't want to watch in a football game, right, is bad offense, good defense. That literally is just like all right, I have no interest in watching this game because it's not going to be fun. And I'm all about fun. Like I want to see points scored. My college football is all about fun and all about watching Penn State. Those are like the only things I care about. If I'm looking at a game and I'm like, man, this is going to be absolutely dreadful, and if I love a bet, I will watch it, obviously. If I like a side or a total in a game, I'm going to watch it. But, man, when you just write it up and you're like, man, great defense, disgustingly bad offense, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to pass on that. We're going to go to the flip side of that. We're going to go to USC for the last game of the slate. They get Cal. Somehow – is this total correct at 59.5? There's no way that's correct. Is that actually correct?
I mean, Cal's just not going to score.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is true. Cal is going to struggle more so to score, but USC's defense is not good. And they're better than they were early in the season. And they get beat a bit on the ground more so than the air. So I expected this total to be a little bit higher. So I would lean the over in this game. But I could see it being under because we definitely could see a game here where Cal struggles. If Cal struggles, there's no chance you get to 60 points because USC is just not going to do it. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the total did seem a little bit low. And also like Cal is near the bottom to the 126th in passing yards per game allowed. Like, I just don't know how Cal gets stops, and on the flip side, I don't really know how Cal scores. Like, we've been playing some Cal guys for DFS just because they've they're pretty concentrated in terms of where their volume is, but it's not efficient at all, and it's not resulting in a lot of points. And they effectively just like benched the whole starting offense like midway through the second half last week. So, and the backup looked pretty decent. So I don't know what they're to really expect with Cal. I just don't think this game is going to be pretty close. And 21, like if I had to pick a side, I think I'd even like side with USC, but I'm not going to touch this game.
Yeah, this game's kind of like I do think that this over probably hits, but it definitely did not. If Cal comes out and they can't do things, and the problem is Plummer takes so many sacks.
Oh, it's so bad.
Plummer just eats sacks. And if you're just eating sacks, it makes it really difficult to score points because his sacks are not like 1 yard, 2 yard sacks, too. He's like eating like 15-yard sacks. So like if you are sitting there watching and all of a sudden they're just driving down the field and Plummer eats a 15-yard sack, it just kills the drive. So I'm probably just going to stay away from this game, but I probably would lean over still. And I do agree probably on the USC side. I don't see how Cal stopped USC. So like USC is going to put up points. It's just a matter of if Cal can as well. So that's going to wrap it up for the 10 games we have this week. Going into the games this week, I like TCU -10 versus Texas Tech, Georgia -9 versus Tennessee, and Kansas State, Texas under 56.5. Alex, what do you have for this week?
All right. I think the under is 54.5. I'm not going to let you steal 2 points. But I will give you an extra half point on TCU. TCU is minus 9.5 on FanDuel, and I'm going with them as well. So we can hit that number a little bit under 10. I like Tennessee plus 8.5 against Georgia. I think I'm selling myself on the Vols, and then I like LSU plus 13.5.
All right, so I have Kansas State, Texas under 54.5 is what you're telling me. And then what was the other stuff that I'm getting here?
TCU minus 9.5.
TCU minus 9.5. All right, and then what were your three again? Just to recap, Alex. I'm sorry, I was double checking your math on the Texas Kansas State under.
LSU plus 13.5 on DK. Tennessee plus 8.5 against Georgia, and TCU minus 9.5. I think FanDuel is like the only book who is at 9.5. So I've written that down for TCU.
Yep, that's good. Yeah, I had written stuff down a bit ago. So like that's why I had the updated line on the Kansas State game. Looks like we're on opposite sides of the game again. You have been better in those situations this year. You've been 3-1, I believe, when we have been on opposite sides of the game. So we'll see if you can continue that going this week. Good luck to everyone this week. Hopefully you guys have some winners out there. We will see you back here next week. For Alex, I'm Sean. Good luck, everyone.
See you.